The coffee cup shattered on the laboratory floor, but Dr. James Miller barely noticed. His eyes were fixed on the computer screen, watching as impossible data streamed across it. The tiny test particle had moved from one chamber to another without passing through the space between them. It wasn't supposed to work. The math said it couldn't work, yet it had happened. "Run it again," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. His assistant, Tom, nodded and initiated the sequence. The particle vanished from Chamber A and appeared in Chamber B. No delay. No transition. Just there, then here. James ran his hands through his graying hair, leaving it standing up in wild directions. 10 years of research into dark matter, and they had stumbled onto this by complete accident. He grabbed his phone and called the one person who might understand what they had just discovered. An hour later, Dr. Anna Thompson stood in the same spot where the coffee cup had broken, her own cup of tea growing cold in her hands. "You're sure about these readings?" she asked, her eyes scanning through the test data for the 5th time. "We've run it 23 times now," James replied, pointing to the latest results. "The particle isn't just moving faster than light. It's not moving through normal space at all. It's like it's taking the shortcut through something else." Anna set down her tea and began typing rapidly on the keyboard. New equations filled the screen, numbers and symbols that represented the bleeding edge of quantum physics. "The entanglement field isn't just moving the particle," she muttered. "It's creating microscopic tears in spacetime, like tiny wormholes that heal themselves within milliseconds." She turned to face James, her eyes wide with excitement. "Do you realize what this means?" James nodded slowly. "We might have just discovered viable faster-than-light travel." The next few weeks passed in a blur of tests, calculations, and increasingly excited phone calls. What had started as a small research project into dark matter interactions had suddenly become the biggest scientific breakthrough in human history. The International Space Research Institute quickly moved their work to a larger facility, and their team grew from 2 people to 20. They scaled up their tests gradually. First larger particles, then small objects, and finally a test chamber large enough to transport a mouse. Each success brought them closer to their ultimate goal, a drive system that could take a spacecraft across vast distances in the blink of an eye. The problems they encountered were surprisingly manageable. The quantum entanglement field required precise calculations, but modern computers could handle that easily. The power requirements were high but not impossible, far less than what traditional theoretical FTL drives would need. Even the space-time tears, which had initially worried them, proved to be harmless, healing themselves naturally just like Anna had predicted. James often found himself working late into the night, long after the rest of the team had gone home. The old facility was quiet then, peaceful, with only the hum of computers and equipment to keep him company. It was during one of these late nights that he made the final breakthrough. He was studying the data from their latest mouse transport when he noticed something odd in the background readings. The quantum wake, the ripple their process left in spacetime, wasn't random. It followed a pattern, one that could be predicted and controlled. With this knowledge, they could make the drive even more efficient, even safer. As the sun rose over the research facility the next morning, James finished typing up his report. They were ready. The mathematics worked. The simulations were successful. They could build a working FTL drive that would take humanity to the stars. He saved the file and sent it to the project directors. Then he walked to the window and watched the sunrise, wondering how many other suns humanity would visit in the years to come. The coffee machine behind him beeped, reminding him it was time for his morning cup. This time, he managed not to drop it. Unknown to James and his team, their breakthrough had not gone unnoticed. High above Earth's atmosphere, hidden from human detection, an alien observation post recorded everything. And in a distant part of the galaxy, warning signals began to flash across the screens of the Galactic Council's monitoring stations. The test ship gleamed under the bright lights of the hangar. It wasn't much to look at, just a small craft about the size of a passenger bus. But to James Miller, it was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. 6 months of round-the-clock work had transformed his team's discovery into this, humanity's first faster-than-light spacecraft. Final systems check complete, Tom announced from his station. The young assistant had grown more confident over the past months, becoming an essential part of the project. All readings are green. James nodded, his eyes fixed on the main screen showing the test schedule. In less than an hour, they would attempt their first full-scale test. The plan was simple: jump to the dark side of the moon, collect data, and return, a small step that would change everything. Anna Thompson walked up beside him, tablet in hand. "The quantum field generators are running perfectly," she said. "Better than the simulations, actually. It's almost like..." She never finished her sentence. Every screen in the control room suddenly went dark. Then, just as quickly, they came back to life. But now, they showed a message no one had sent. CEAC ALOQUANTUM ENTANGLEMENT experimentes IMEDA HELOI. Before anyone could react, the air in the center of the room began to shimmer. A tall figure materialized, humanoid but clearly not human. Its skin was pale gray, its limbs too long, its large eyes entirely black. It wore what appeared to be some kind of formal robe covered in shifting geometric patterns. Security teams rushed in, weapons raised, but the alien raised its hand in what was clearly meant to be a peaceful gesture. When it spoke, its words were perfectly understandable, though its mouth didn't move quite right with the sounds. "I am Ambassador Gray of the Galactic Council," it said. "We have been watching your species for some time, and we can no longer remain silent. You are playing with forces you do not understand." James stepped forward, his heart pounding but his voice steady. "We understand enough to make it work," he said. "Our calculations are solid. The quantum wake is far more dangerous than you realize," the ambassador interrupted. "We have seen civilizations tear themselves apart pursuing this technology. That is why we are here. The Council has protocols for first contact, but your experiments forced our hand. We cannot allow you to continue." The room erupted in argument. Military officers demanded to know how long aliens had been watching Earth. Scientists wanted to know about the Council's technology. Security personnel were calling for backup while trying to figure out how to handle a being that could apparently teleport at will. Through it all, Anna kept typing on her tablet, her fingers flying over the screen. She tugged on James's sleeve and showed him what she had found. The ambassador's arrival had triggered every sensor in the facility, and the readings were fascinating. Their visitor had used some kind of FTL technology to appear in the room, but it was completely different from their quantum drive. "Look at the energy signature," she whispered. "It's incredibly inefficient. They're brute forcing their way through space-time instead of using quantum entanglement. But why would an advanced civilization use such a primitive method?" James studied the data, his mind racing. Something wasn't adding up. The ambassador spoke of danger, but the readings from their own tests showed nothing like the catastrophic effects being described. Either the Council was wrong about the technology, or they weren't telling the whole truth. "We request," Ambassador Gray announced, its voice cutting through the chaos in the room, "that you surrender all research data and dismantle this facility. The Council is prepared to offer Earth membership in our organization in exchange for compliance. We can guide your species towards safer methods of advancement." James looked at the test ship sitting in the hangar, so close to its first flight. Then he looked at the ambassador, whose black eyes revealed nothing. In that moment, he made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. "With all due respect, Ambassador," he said, "I think we need to discuss this further, particularly why the Council is so afraid of a technology they claim doesn't work." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Ambassador Gray's posture stiffened slightly, the first real emotion it had shown since arriving. "Choose your next words carefully, Dr. Miller," it said. The Council's decisions on technological restrictions are not open for debate. But James could see Anna was already sending their sensor data to secure servers around the world. Whatever happened next, humanity's greatest discovery wouldn't be so easily erased. The holographic display filled the conference room with images of destruction, shattered planets, collapsed stars, and the remnants of what had once been thriving civilizations drifted through the air above the table. Ambassador Gray stood silently as the members of the United Earth Council watched the presentation. "These are the results of uncontrolled quantum drive experiments," the ambassador said. 12 species destroyed themselves pursuing the same technology you now develop. The Council's restrictions exist to prevent such tragedies. James sat between Anna and Tom, watching the horrifying display. The images were convincing, but something about them bothered him. He had spent the last 3 days reviewing the Council's data on quantum wake patterns, and these results didn't match their own careful experiments. Anna was typing quietly on her tablet, as she had been throughout the entire presentation. She slid it over to James, keeping her movements subtle. On the screen was a detailed analysis of the holographic data. She had spotted it too. The numbers didn't add up. "Ambassador," James said, standing slowly, "could you show us the data from the Proxima incident again?" He pointed to one of the destroyed solar systems floating above them. The ambassador's black eyes fixed on him. "The Council has provided sufficient evidence." "Please," James interrupted. "It's relevant to our understanding of the risks." The hologram shifted, focusing on a single planetary system. Numbers and graphs appeared alongside it, showing the supposed cascade failure of quantum experiments. James walked around the table, studying the display from different angles. "The quantum wake pattern here," he said, pointing to a particular set of readings, "shows signs of deliberate interference. These aren't natural quantum field collapses. Someone was actively destabilizing these experiments." The room went silent. Ambassador Gray's typically smooth movements became slightly rigid. "You are mistaken. Your understanding of quantum mechanics is apparently better than you expected." Anna cut in, standing up as well. She projected her own analysis onto the display, overlaying it with the Council's data. "We've been studying your FTL technology since you arrived. It's deliberately inefficient, using massive amounts of energy to accomplish what our drive does with minimal power, almost as if it was designed to be restrictive." The ambassador's dark eyes narrowed. "You risk your entire species with these baseless accusations." Tom, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "The risk calculations in your report, they're not just wrong, they're mathematically impossible. These numbers have been altered." James watched the ambassador carefully. "The Council isn't afraid our drive will fail," he said quietly. "They're afraid it will succeed. Because if it does, their control over interstellar travel ends. How many other species have made this discovery, only to have their research destroyed under the guise of safety?" Ambassador Gray's next words carried a chill. "The Council maintains order in the galaxy. Unrestricted travel between systems would lead to chaos. Your species is young. You cannot comprehend the responsibilities we bear." "We comprehend enough," James replied. "Your presentation shows 12 species that supposedly destroyed themselves, but our analysis suggests they were on the verge of success, just like we are. What really happened to them?" The ambassador waved a hand, and the holograms vanished. "This meeting is over. The Council's decision is final. You have 2 planetary rotations to surrender your research, or we will be forced to take more direct action." As the ambassador turned to leave, Anna's tablet beeped. She had been running a deep scan of the Council's data throughout the presentation. What she found made her gasp. "James," she whispered, "I found encrypted files in their database. Those 12 species, they're not dead. They're quarantined. The Council has them under strict supervision, confined to their home systems." James looked at the retreating form of Ambassador Gray, then at the worried faces of the Earth Council members. They had just discovered that humanity wasn't merely pushing the boundaries of physics. They were threatening a system of control that had likely existed for thousands of years. He made a decision. "We need to proceed with the test flight," he said firmly. "Not just for us, but for every species the Council has held back. It's time to prove that their fears are wrong." The Earth Council members exchanged glances. If they defied the Council, they risked making powerful enemies. But if they succeeded, humanity would change the galaxy forever. Commander Thomas Walker sat in the pilot's seat of the Prometheus, running through his final checks. The small test ship hummed around him, its quantum drive core pulsing with a soft blue light. In the 48 hours since the Council's ultimatum, the entire facility had worked non-stop to prepare for this moment. "All systems are green," he reported, his calm voice hiding the excitement he felt. "Drive core is stable, ready to initiate jump sequence." In the control room, James and Anna watched the readings carefully. They had chosen a remote star system for the test, far from any populated worlds. If the Council was watching, and they surely were, they would have little reason to interfere with a jump to empty space. "Remember," Anna said over the comm, "the jump calculations are present. As soon as you arrive, the drive will begin charging for the return trip. Should take about 5 minutes." Tom's voice crackled through the speakers. "Charging quantum field generators. Beginning countdown." James watched the numbers climb on his screen. The quantum wake was forming exactly as their calculations predicted. Small, controlled, nothing like the catastrophic disturbances the Council had shown them. They were right. This was going to work. Jump in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Prometheus vanished, not with a flash or a bang, but with a quiet ripple in the air, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. On their monitors, the quantum wake signature was clear and stable. For several tense seconds, everyone held their breath. Then the sensors picked up the confirmation signal, transmitted by the Prometheus from light years away. The jump had worked perfectly. Cheers erupted in the control room. Decades of scientific theory, months of hard work, and humanity's dreams of reaching the stars, all proven in a single moment. James hugged Anna, both of them laughing with relief and joy. But their celebration was cut short. New alerts flashed across their screens. The Prometheus's return signal was showing another quantum wake signature, a massive one far larger than their small test ship could generate. "Multiple Council ships detected," Tom reported, his voice tight with tension. "They've formed a blockade at my return coordinates. Orders." James grabbed the comm. "Can you adjust your return point?" "Negative. Drive is locked into the original calculations. I've got 3 minutes until the jump activates." Anna was already typing furiously. "The Council ships are using their inefficient drive systems. The energy output is enormous. They're trying to disrupt the quantum field." James felt his heart race. If the Council ships destabilized the quantum field during the return jump, the results could be catastrophic. Everything they had feared could come true, not because of their technology, but because of the Council's interference. "Tom," he said urgently, "shut down the drive. We'll find another way to bring you home." "Can't do that, sir," Tom replied calmly. "Drive sequence is locked in. But I've been studying the Council's data too. Their ships might be powerful, but they're slow to maneuver. And I've got an idea." The next 2 minutes were tense as they watched Tom's preparations through the sensor feeds. He was adjusting the Prometheus's position, using the small ship's superior agility to set up his return jump. "What's he doing?" one of the technicians asked. Anna suddenly grinned. "He's going to thread the needle. Look at his trajectory. He'll materialize in the gap between their ships. Their own energy fields will actually help stabilize his quantum wake." 30 seconds to jump, Tom reported. "If this works, we'll have proof that not only is our drive safe, it's more precise than anything the Council has. And if it doesn't, well, it's been an honor." James gripped the edge of his console. This wasn't just about one test flight anymore. This was humanity's chance to prove that the Council's fears, or their excuses, were unfounded. Jump sequence initiating. Tom's voice came through clearly. See you on the other side. The return signal showed the Prometheus vanishing from its distant location. For 3 heart-stopping seconds, nothing happened. Then, with that same subtle ripple in space, the ship appeared directly in the hangar, exactly where it had started. Through the control room window, James could see Tom giving them a thumbs up from the cockpit. They had done it. Despite the Council's interference, despite their threats and their blockade, humanity had proven their drive worked. And more importantly, they had shown it was safer and more precise than the Council's own technology. But as alarms began blaring throughout the facility, James knew this success would come with consequences. The Council wouldn't let this go unanswered. The real test was just beginning. The Council chamber was nothing like James had imagined. Instead of a grand hall filled with alien architecture, it looked more like a simple amphitheater. Hundreds of species representatives sat in curved rows, their attention focused on the central platform where Ambassador Gray was speaking. As Earth's scientific advisor, James sat with Anna in the observers section, watching the debate unfold. The humans' reckless actions cannot go unchallenged, Ambassador Gray was saying. Their continued development of this dangerous technology threatens the stability of the entire galaxy. But for the first time in centuries, the Council wasn't simply nodding in agreement. A representative of the Meridians, a species that looked like towering crystals, rose to speak. We have reviewed the data from the human test flight. The Meridians' voice chimed like bells. Their quantum wake was minimal, their control precise. Perhaps it is time we questioned why certain technologies are restricted. Murmurs spread through the chamber. James noticed several younger species representatives leaning forward with interest. They had all lived under the Council's technological restrictions. Now, humanity had shown those restrictions might be unnecessary. Anna nudged James and pointed to her tablet. She had been analyzing the Council's technical archives, which they'd been granted access to as observers. Look at this, she whispered. The Council's approved FTL systems all follow the same basic design. It's like they deliberately chose the most inefficient method and made it the standard. Before James could respond, another representative spoke up. This one was from a species called the Builders, known for their engineering skills. The human drive design is elegant, they said. Our own scientists have reviewed it. The Council's warnings about quantum wake damage appear to be overstated. Ambassador Gray's normally composed demeanor showed cracks of concern. The Council's wisdom in these matters spans millennia. We cannot allow. Cannot allow what? A new voice rang out. A representative of the Auroran Alliance, one of the newer Council members, stood up. Cannot allow innovation. Cannot allow progress. We have data from the human test flight. Their drive is not only safer than ours, but it uses 1/10 of the energy. The chamber erupted in discussion. James watched as centuries of carefully maintained control began to crumble. Species that had always accepted the Council's restrictions were starting to question them. Anna's tablet beeped again. Her eyes widened as she read the incoming data. James, she said urgently, I found something. The Council's trade routes, their approved shipping lanes, they all depend on their inefficient FTL technology. They've been using technological restrictions to maintain economic control. James looked around the chamber with new understanding. It wasn't just about safety protocols or preventing disasters. The Council's entire power structure depended on keeping younger species dependent on their approved technologies. A small group of representatives approached their section. The Meridian, the Builder, and the Auroran among them. The Builder spoke first. We would like to discuss the possibility of technological cooperation with Earth. The Council will never approve, James said carefully. The Auroran's skin rippled with colors that suggested amusement. The Council's power is not absolute. Several member species are prepared to establish independent research partnerships. We have worked within their restrictions for too long. Ambassador Gray's voice cut through the chamber's chaos. This session will adjourn for deliberation. All observers will clear the chamber. As they left, James noticed other representatives watching them with new interest. The old balance of power was shifting. Humanity's drive hadn't just proven a new way to travel through space. It had shown that the Council's authority could be challenged. In the corridor outside, Anna was still studying her data. The quantum wake from our drive. It's not just cleaner than theirs. The patterns suggest it could be improved even further if we work together with other species. James nodded slowly. The Council had tried to stop human progress out of fear. Instead, they had sparked a revolution. Not a violent one fought with weapons, but one driven by the simple human desire to innovate and explore. As they walked back to their quarters, James could hear the heated discussions continuing in the chamber behind them. Change was coming to the galaxy, whether the Council wanted it or not. And it had all started with a broken coffee cup and an unexpected discovery in a quiet lab on Earth. The sight of 5 alien ships appearing in Earth's orbit caused quite a stir, but not for the reason anyone expected. Unlike the Council's massive vessels with their intimidating designs, these ships were elegant and varied, each reflecting its species' unique approach to engineering. They had come not to threaten, but to talk. James, Anna, and Tom stood in the United Earth Council chamber as representatives from the Meridians, Builders, Aurorans, and 2 other species made their proposal. Ambassador Diana Reed, Earth's newly appointed diplomatic chief, listened carefully to their words. We represent 17 species who wish to break free from the Council's technological restrictions, the Auroran speaker said, its skin shifting through shades of blue and green. We propose a joint development agreement, your quantum drive technology in exchange for our combined scientific knowledge. The Builder representative stepped forward, placing a small device on the table. It projected a hologram showing a vast network of trading routes. For too long, the Council has controlled these paths through space. Their inefficient drive technology forces all trade to follow specific routes they monitor and tax heavily. Anna was already analyzing the data they had brought. Her eyes lit up with excitement. Their scientific knowledge is incredible, she said. There's so much here we could learn from each other. But before Earth's Council could respond, emergency alerts flashed across every screen. A massive Council fleet had appeared at the edge of the solar system. Ambassador Gray's voice broadcast across all channels. This unauthorized gathering violates Council law, the ambassador declared. All visiting ships will depart immediately, or we will be forced to take action to maintain galactic order. Tom, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. They're bluffing, he said confidently. I studied their ship movements from our test flight data. They're keeping maximum distance from each other. They know their drive systems are unstable when used in close formation. The Meridian representative chimed in agreement. Their fleet tactics are limited by their own technology. They rely on numbers and intimidation, not actual combat efficiency. Diana Reed stood, her decision made. The Council claims to protect peace and order, she said clearly, knowing her words were being broadcast to the Council fleet. But true peace comes from cooperation and progress, not restriction and control. She turned to the alien representatives. Earth accepts your proposal for technological cooperation. Furthermore, we invite any species who wish to break free from the Council's restrictions to join our research efforts. The Council's response was immediate. This leaves us no choice, Ambassador Gray's voice boomed. We will establish a blockade of the Sol system until order is restored. But something unexpected happened. As the Council fleet began to move, 3 of their ships broke formation. Then 5 more. The ships turned, taking position alongside the vessels of the rebel species. Several Council member species are announcing their withdrawal from the Council, Anna reported, reading the incoming transmissions. They're refusing to participate in the blockade. They're requesting asylum with Earth and the Coalition. The remainder of the Council fleet hung motionless in space. Their bluff had been called, and they had lost more than just a show of force. Their iron grip on galactic civilization was crumbling. James watched as Diana Reed masterfully took control of the situation. "We invite the Council to join us in peaceful dialogue," she broadcast. "Not as rulers, but as equals. The galaxy is changing. You can either change with it or be left behind." The Auroran representative's skin rippled with patterns that suggested laughter. "Humans truly are remarkable," it said. "In less than a year, you've done what many of us thought impossible. You've made the Council blink." As the Council fleet slowly withdrew, James looked at the hologram of trade routes still floating above the table. Soon, ships using the Miller Drive would create new paths through space, paths that couldn't be controlled or restricted. The galaxy was about to become a much smaller place. Tom grinned at him. "Not bad for a broken coffee cup and an accidental discovery, eh?" But James knew this was just the beginning. As he watched Earth's representatives begin detailed discussions with their new allies, he could see the future taking shape. Humanity had reached for the stars and found not just new worlds, but new friends. Together, they would reshape the galaxy into something better than the Council had ever allowed it to be. 1 year had passed since the confrontation in Earth's orbit, and the galaxy was transforming. The gleaming research facility on Mars's surface stood as a symbol of that change. Through its crystal-clear dome, Earth hung like a blue jewel in the red Martian sky, while ships of various alien designs moved between the planets. James walked through the facility's main laboratory, where humans worked alongside their alien colleagues. The sight still amazed him. Meridian crystalline beings operating quantum computers, builder engineers crafting new drive components, and Auroran scientists whose color-shifting skin reflected their excitement at each new discovery. "The latest test results are in," Anna called out, waving him over to her station. She worked with a team of scientists from 6 different species now, each bringing their own unique perspective to the research. "The quantum wake is 60% smaller than our original design. At this rate, we'll soon have ships that can jump between galaxies." Tom entered the lab, still wearing his flight suit. As humanity's top test pilot, he now trained others, both human and alien, in operating the new generation of quantum dry ships. "You should see the trading ships they're building in the Jupiter shipyards," he said. "The builders have combined their architecture with our drive technology. They're beautiful." A soft chime announced an incoming transmission. The lab's holographic display activated, showing Ambassador Diana Reed at the newly established Galactic Assembly on a neutral world far from Earth. The old council chamber had been abandoned, a relic of an age of restriction and control. "The Terra Accords have been ratified by 30 more species," Diana reported, smiling. "Even some of the old council loyalists are coming around. They can't ignore the benefits of free scientific exchange anymore." James nodded. The Terra Accords, named after humanity's homeworld, established new guidelines for technological development. Instead of restriction, they emphasized safety protocols and shared research. Any species could participate, provided they contributed to the common pool of knowledge. "How's our friend Ambassador Gray?" Tom asked with a grin. Diana's smile widened, adapting, surprisingly. After the council reformed, they appointed her to head their new technological exchange program. "I think she's finally understanding that progress doesn't have to be fearsome." A flash of light outside the dome drew their attention. A ship had just emerged from quantum space, one of the new hybrid designs. Its arrival caused no disruption, no dangerous wake, just a subtle ripple in the fabric of space-time. Perfect control. Hard to believe it all started with a broken coffee cup. Anna mused. Looking at the ship, she had kept that cup, now displayed in a case in her office. A reminder of how small accidents could change history. "It wasn't just the discovery," James said, watching the various species working together around them. "It was what we chose to do with it. The council feared change, tried to control it. We chose to share it, to use it to bring people together." The lab's doors opened, and a group of young students entered, humans and aliens together. here to learn about quantum physics and drive technology. They were the first generation that would grow up knowing humanity's place among the stars, seeing different species not as strange or threatening, but as friends and colleagues. Diana's hologram showed her shuffling some papers. The Assembly has approved the establishment of 5 new joint research facilities across the galaxy. They want you 3 to consult on the projects. Seems your reputation for impossible achievements has spread. James looked at Anna and Tom, seeing the same excitement in their eyes that he felt. There were still so many discoveries to make, so many mysteries to solve. But now they wouldn't do it alone, or under the shadow of restriction. They would do it together, as part of something greater than any one species. Outside the dome, ships continued to arrive and depart, their quantum drives humming with perfectly controlled energy. Each one represented a victory not just for human ingenuity, but for the idea that progress came from cooperation, not control. The Council had feared humanity's drive would destroy their carefully maintained order. They had been right, in a way. The old order was gone, but what replaced it was something far better. A galaxy where species worked together, where knowledge flowed freely, and where the only limits were the ones they chose to overcome together. As the Martian sun set, painting the sky in shades of red and gold, James finally felt certain that humanity had found its place among the stars. Not as conquerors or subjects, but as innovators, friends, and partners in the greatest adventure any species could undertake, the endless journey of discovery.